So, you're new to Warpforge and you're wondering, what are these Tyranids Hive Leviathan all about? Well, beyond being the big spiky monsters who just want to kill everything, the basic premise of the Tyranids are that they are a hive mind race of alien creatures in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. They're driven by an insatiable hunger and are constantly searching for new worlds to consume. The Hive Fleet Leviathan is a colossal, ancient hive fleet of Tyranids, one of the most fearsome threats to the Imperium of Man. Its Leviathan-class hive ship is a staggering size, dwarfing even the largest Imperial warp ships. This monstrous vessel is the heart of the Hive Fleet, controlling its vast swarms of bioforms. The Hive Fleet's origins are still shrouded in mystery, but it is believed to have existed for millennia, consuming countless worlds in its relentless hunger. Its bioforms are highly specialized with a wide range of abilities, including psychic powers, energy weapons, and melee combat prowess. The Hive Fleet is a formidable opponent, capable of overwhelming even the most powerful Imperial defenses. Creeped out yet? If that doesn't give you nightmares, I don't know what will. In the game of Warpforged, there are 4 Warlords from which you can choose from in the Tyranid faction. When you first begin your collection, you'll be given the Tervigon. Now this monstrosity puts a pack of Termagants into your hand every turn. In other words, able to generate and swarm up 4 Termagants per turn. Basically, this guy is the combo deck of the faction and allows you to win through inevitability. So if you like dragging the game to the late game, Tervigon is for you. Terror of Vardengast, however, is the complete opposite. The Terror is the aggro beatdown warlord of the faction. It also brings you really good anti-flyer capability. The Neurophobe has one of the cheaper warlord powers at only 1 energy and specializes more in control and really making use of the Synapse ability. So if you like the idea of a warlord based around psychic powers, then the Neurophobe is for you. And last but not least, we have the Swarm Lord. And with a massive 40 health and also uniquely a 3 melee 1 range stat line, the Swarm Lord is really good at controlling in the early game with a higher attack and also being a beatdown and racing your opponent. Swarm Lord is currently one of the more powerful warlords in the faction, but it is a legendary card, so you will need to collect him first. Overall, the playstyle of the Tyranids is it's a board building faction, playing down your troops and controlling the enemy board. This allows you to snowball towards a big combo or big turn finish, and along the way you will be making use of stealth as well as the faction keywords Synapse and Swarm. Synapse allows you to play a stratagem onto a creature with the Synapse special ability, and this will ensure that the effect goes not only on the creature that you played it on, but on the adjacent troops as well. This means you essentially triple the power and value of each of the stratagems that you play. So when you're playing Tyranids, make sure to get the most out of your Synapse creatures to maximize that value from your spells. This will give you a significant advantage over your opponents. Swarm lets you stack units of the same type by placing a troop to the left of a unit of the same type, and this allows you to build one gigantic tall unit. However, if you place units to the right, then the units won't stack, and this gives you a strategic choice as whether to go tall and build one big unit or whether to go wide. Many of the Tyranid cards have an ability called Tide, and then they'll be followed by a number. So we can see here the Ripper Swarms have Tide 3, and this means that after you play the initial card, you'll be given an additional 3 ephemeral cards that you can then stack to build the swarm. Some of the real pros of the faction come from having meaty, beefy units, and these can be used to outvalue your opponent when you're trading your troops for theirs. Due to the Synapse special rule, Tyranids have access to Synapse cheats, which basically means they can get 3 for the price of 1 on every stratagem they play. So if you play Enhanced Organism, for example, on a Synapse creature in the middle of 2 other units, that means all 3 units would gain +3 health. Other real strengths of the faction include good access to stealth troops, which can't be interacted with by your opponent, and they often lead to the very big finishers and reach that the Tyranid faction has. Primarily that's in the ultra powerful Ravenous Hunter legendary card, but even things like Adrenal Surge, which again can give 3 units, and that by the way includes your Warlord, +2 melee, +2 range for a big finish. The main weakness of the faction comes in having very useless late game units. When you look at all these sort of 7, 8, 9s, 10s, there's very few of them that are actually really good. The faction also has very little come from behind mechanics, so if you do get behind on board and you're losing, it's very hard to get back on. And there's one other very important thing to realise when you're collecting the Tyranids, and that is that perhaps more than any other faction, they rely on a specific defense stratagem called the Disruption Pool. And so if we scroll along here on the Forge, you will see at rank 20 you unlock the Digestion Pool, and that means that 50% of your games when you're going second, you'll be able to play a troop that costs 2 less this turn. So in other words, you can play a 5 energy Carnifex on the turn where you only have 3 energy. This is a huge boost to the faction, and it will really increase your win rate, but you don't get access to that until you hit level 20 on the Forge. So when it comes to your collection, the one thing I recommend spending money on in this game is getting the premium campaign. Now the premium campaigns exist for each of the different factions, and we can see here the High Fleet Leviathan one. What this will enable you to do is, for a very cost-effective way, will enable you to grow your collection much faster. So you can see here, for example, on the first node that we unlock on the campaign, we get this item on the left, and if we have the premium campaign, we also get this item on the right, in this case a free legendary wild card. Now as you collect and as you play missions and unlock extra points to spend, you can unlock this campaign, and as you can see, as you go along the way, you'll unlock packs with extra cards in, crystals which can be spent on various rewards, and you'll also unlock cool cosmetics as well in the shape of avatars and of course the card backs. One of the things that I particularly love is at the end of the campaign, not only do you get a guaranteed 2 legendary cards, but you also get, in the premium campaign, you get a pack here which you can continuously repurchase. And so as you're playing your daily missions every day and getting points, you can keep unlocking booster packs for your favoured faction. As you build your collection, you'll actually be able to decompose your spare cards and spend them in what's called the Forge. We already talked about this earlier. As you move up the Forge, you will unlock extra wild cards, which are particularly useful because you can choose which epic or legendary cards you want, extra booster packs, and eventually you'll unlock key defense and offensive stratagems. Now, some of the key cards that you need to be aware of. I think when it comes to the legendary cards, you really want to focus on getting the Ravenous Hunter. This is such a huge finisher and can enable you to do 20, 25, 30 damage from hand. It's a really powerful finisher and probably the #1 legendary card you want to aim for. Outside of that, we have some other good ones. If you choose to have the Swarmlord as your Warlord, of course you don't have to. You can save on the legendaries and play the other wild cards, but it's very powerful. Along with the infinite biomorphologies, I would then say the Broodlord and the Tyranid Prime. These are the legendary cards that you're going to see most commonly in the good decks. The others, to be honest, you can live without. Now, outside of the legendary cards, you definitely want to be looking at cards like Encircle the Prey. This is a key card and in just about every single Tyranid deck. Very powerful ability, giving you the opportunity to put into stealth up to 3 troops if you play it on Synapse creatures. And the great thing about the Tyranids is you have some very generic cards, some of the basic cards, which are actually very powerful staples. One of my favourites is the Trusted Old Carnifex. This is a card that you'll begin with, and by putting armour or melee or range on, you can boost the stats of this unit. Hot tip, you really want to go for armour. In addition to the Carnifex, You want to be looking at Gene Stealers and the Gargoyles, as these are really solid 3-drops, and again, they do form the mainstay of most of the Tyranid decks, particularly in that early part of the mana curve. When it comes to the stratagems, in addition to the stealth, the hardened biology is very, very powerful. Often if you get this down on a Synapse creature, making 2 to 3 units have armor 2 and +1 health, it's very, very difficult for your opponent to get rid of that board. And last but not least, one of my favourite sort of beefy units is the Hive Crone. This comes in at a whopping 6 energy, but this being a flyer and dealing 3 damage on the turn it comes down, and then being a real problem for your opponent to remove, is another very powerful mainstay in most Tyranid decks. Alright, cool story BJ, but what exactly should I be building? What do the decks look like? Okay, let's take you through a couple of decks. So first of all, this is a good example of a nice beginner deck that you can build fairly early on. All of the cards in this deck are either basic, or which is the grey, represented by the grey diamond, or we do have some of the rare cards as well, but we don't have any epic or legendaries in this deck, and this will enable you to build a really, really solid board, make use of the Synapse ability, and take over the board. In addition, we've got the Tervagon. Now, the Tervagon being the initial Warlord that you get, this is a inevitable deck without using too many high costly cards. But BJ, what are you talking about? You've got a legendary card in there, High Fleet Leviathan. Yeah, I have got that in there. To be honest, you don't really need to use this card to make this deck work, but I would say if you're going to put one legendary card in, then this is very, very much themed towards a Tervagon sort of gameplay approach and player style. Making all of your troops cost 1 less for the rest of the battle really does just mean that, combined with Tervagon's Warlord ability to be able to constantly pump out Tervagons, you just are going to overwhelm your opponent. Now, as you build your collection, as you start to get things together, you can aim for a pro deck. This is a good example of what a really top tier Swarmlord deck looks like. So again, if you're wondering about what cards to collect, this is definitely a direction you can go in. And what you'll also see is very similar shells to this, but perhaps things like the Carnifexes and the Venom Throat swapped out for stealth equivalents at that mana curve. So that's more of a kind of flavour thing, but the basic principle of getting on board, taking over, base bashing, and then coming in with the big finishers to end the game. So there we have it, guys. That's my overview for the Tyranid faction. I hope you found this video useful. If you like this content, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button below. And I do wish you the very best of luck on your Tyranid collection. May the great Devourer bless you with legendary cards in all your packs.